It's a very curious day in the world of Magic the Gathering. We have just got a leak of 3 completed Planeswalkers from the upcoming Phyrexia All Will Be One set. But here's the thing, it's not clear whether this leak is real or fake. On top of that, someone is selling a set of Alpha Magic cards for over $2 million. And we have some bonus secret Lair cards to cover as well.
Magic. I am a wizard! History. I'm an old wizard! The magic historian. My bones hurt.
Greetings, owners of fine luxury cardboard rectangles, my friends. I hope the day finds you well because we have gathered for a fun installment of Mega Magic News. We're going to be taking a look at a bunch of different Magic cards. We've got leaks, we've got bonus cards, and we have the insane sale of the #1 graded alpha set in the world. It is listed at $2.5 million. And to make sure you guys understand exactly what we're talking about, we're dealing with graded cards. So all I own in terms of alpha and graded is this Fear. If you take a look, you might be able to see, I don't know how well the camera's picking it up, but this is rated an 8 out of 10. When you look at this card, it looks absolutely great. Like you look at the surface and everything, it looks fantastic. But a 10, 10s are flawless, right? We're talking, there are no scratches on the cards, no dings on the edges, and the printing of the card is also perfectly centered. We are talking immaculate cards, right? So you have to understand that getting a 10 on an alpha is incredibly difficult. First of all, they barely printed any alpha cards. To give you an idea, when it comes to the rares, there are only 1,100 roughly. There might be 1 or 2 more or 1 or 2 less, give or take a few. There are about 1,100 alpha rares in existence. So if you want an alpha Black Lotus, there's a little over 1,000 of them that were originally printed. Now bear in mind, that was 30 years ago. So how many of these have been damaged through gameplay or whatever else, right? People used to play Iron Man Magic with straight up moxes and stuff. It would make you sick to your stomach if you're new to the game to see these cards. Like, people tore expensive cards in half. I mean, the moxes were worth like $15 at the time, right? So you think about that. People destroyed this stuff. So there are less than the original number of copies to begin with. So you have this limited supply, but then you've got to find perfect 10 rated cards, which, like I said, super difficult. So this alpha set that is available is like a perfect 10 on every card. Like, every card in it is a graded 10. It is the holiest of holy grails when it comes to Magic the Gathering. The fact that it even exists blows my mind. When it comes to these graded cards, what they do is they keep population reports. And those population reports will tell you how many of these exist in the world, or at least that are graded, right? Obviously, they can't psychically keep track of ones that aren't graded, but it keeps track of all the graded ones. So the population of them will say, okay, there's 10 of these, 40 of these, whatever it is. A bunch of cards in this collection are one of ones. It's literally the only known 10 alpha in existence, right? So this thing is up for sale for $2.5 million, which is just obviously a staggering amount of money. I wrap my mind around it. It's just crazy. This is a game that I started playing when I was 15 years old. And when we started it, it was like any other game. You just start playing it with your friends, and one day you'll throw it off to the side, just like you did every other like board game or whatever else. But instead, Magic grew, continued onwards to the point where at its 30th anniversary, you can literally sell a full-on set of it. $2.5 million is the asking price. I have no idea if it's actually going to sell. I don't even know how you properly value a set like that. It's like a one-of-a-kind object. So I genuinely am curious to see if it's going to sell, if it's just going to stick around for a while. It's probably only going to go up in value over time. It's not going to become more common, right? So anyways, fascinating to me to see that. Let us move on to the leak spoiler image, my friends. I'm going to put this up on the screen. Let's talk about the 3 planeswalkers that we have depicted here. And these look like these are supposed to be the oil slick style foils that they talked about with the Phyrexia All Will Be One complete bundle. So you can see that we're getting a Jace, a Vraska, and a Nissa. This does fall in line with what we already knew. Wizards of the Coast gave us that teaser image showing us 10 different planeswalkers and saying 5 of them have been completed. Now, you want to bear in mind with this that seeing these as completed versions does not mean that in the story these guys are completed versions, which may feel a little bit confusing. But what I believe is going on, and this has not been confirmed, but what I believe Wizards of the Coast is doing, is they are going to make completed versions of all 10 of these different planeswalkers and include them in the set as a red herring kind of concept. So until you actually know the story, you don't know who will be completed. Because we did see already that they commissioned completed artwork, not these artworks, by the way, different completed artworks for all 10 of those planeswalkers. And so it makes sense to assume, to me at least, that that's what's going on here as well. We're going to see all 10. So in terms of the story, this does not mean that Jace, Vraska, and Nissa are all uncompleted or completed either way, right? It doesn't definitively say on either side. And as far as I'm concerned, they might do all 10 planeswalkers in all of these different styles and just cram the set full of planeswalkers a la War of the Spark, which did very well. In which case, we could see non-Phyrexianized, non-completed versions of all 10 planeswalkers and then completed versions. So it looks like we're getting 2 alternates of the completed versions because Wizards can't help themselves and are like, why don't we make 98 different versions of every card now? Why don't we make it insanely baffling to the point where even people whose lives are dedicated to making videos about our products can't keep it all straight? I'm trying so hard to keep it all straight. They are not making it easy. So let's evaluate the cards and we'll talk about whether they lean more towards real or fake in this case. Obviously, we're going to be getting fragmented information for each of these, but Nissa is the place where we get the most information. So let's start with her. Now, the casting cost is kind of obscured by the light there, but it is 2 Phyrexian green mana symbols, 2 green mana symbols, and 3. So this is a planeswalker that costs 7 in total, and if you're not doing the Phyrexian mana using life, then it's going to cost you 7 in total, and 4 of those are green. That is a hefty, heavy green lean, right? It's basically saying you have to play mono green unless you're willing to go Phyrexian style, and even then, I mean, this is probably just going to be played in a 2-color build or mono green, I imagine, in most cases. So what do you get for your 7 mana? You get a 7 loyalty planeswalker with completed. If you never saw Tamiyo and you don't know how completed works, it goes like this. The Phyrexian mana symbols and the casting cost can be paid by green mana or by paying 2 life. So you can cast Nissa by paying 1 with 1 of those green mana and then 1 with 2 less life. So you can go, I'm going to pay 6 to cast her, 3 and 3 green and 2 life. Or you can go 4 life and then you just pay 2 green and 3. So for every Phyrexian mana symbol you don't want to pay in mana, it costs you 2 life. But completed planeswalkers have an additional rule that say if life was paid to cast me, I come in with 2 fewer loyalty counters. Now, we have never seen a planeswalker yet with multiple Phyrexian mana symbols. So we haven't had a rules clarification to indicate whether a completed Nissa comes out with 7, 5, or 3 loyalty planeswalker counters, or if it's just 7 or 5. And by that I mean, if you pay both of the costs in 4 extra life, does it just count as 1 reduction of 2 counters? Or each time you reduce the cost, does that mean you have to take 2 loyalty counters off? Because at that point, if that's how it works, paying 4 life and 5 mana for a 3 loyalty planeswalker of this variety doesn't feel strong enough. So I lean towards paying life equals just 1 reduction of 2 loyalty counters, but I'm also wondering if that's automatically going to be 2, or if they're going to change the number based on the different planeswalkers, which would get a little confusing because you can see here it just says completed with no number after it. So I have to assume that it's always going to be 2. Now, in terms of the abilities, you have +1, create an XX green Phyrexian horror creature token, where X is her loyalty. So I like this. I like the way that if you've paid more mana for it, then it comes out with more loyalty, so you're making this bigger worm overall, and it weakens the ability. You can have stronger abilities as your first ability that scale with the loyalty. I think that this is a clever way to leverage the completed ability to give scaling power. I like that. Then you've got -1, destroy target artifact or enchantment. I mean, that also feels very green. And at only -1 loyalty off of her, if you put her out at full, that's 7 different permanents you get to destroy. Now, yeah, admittedly, paying 7 mana to destroy 7 permanents over 7 turns, maybe not the fastest or best plan, but still, that's a lot of value over the long term. And as somebody who's played games where Planeswalkers just sit on the board getting to do their thing, it can be pretty obnoxious, even little innocuous abilities like that. It's just a nice tack on that right as soon as Nissa hits the board, you can go boom, make a fat worm or smoke an artifact or enchantment. That's a problem, right? And then you have the ultimate. Now, this is obscured by the thumb. It looks to me like it's a -7, and it says, until end of turn, creatures you control get +1/+1 for each forest you control and gain trample. Now, this feels like kind of an underwhelming ultimate ability. If it does genuinely cost -7, it is funky that you can play it right away, but casting it right, like let's say you cast it at its full cost and you pay the 7 mana and then you play it and you have 7 lands out. You're paying 7 mana to give your creatures +7/+7 and trample till end of turn, which is all right, but does that feel like Mythic Planeswalker like go off levels? I say no. But it does feel really green, and I mean, maybe this is just going to be one of the weaker walkers in the set. Either way, I dig this completed concept. Look how intense Nissa looks completed. She's all spiky and thorny. She's still got like a nature vibe to her, but it's far more just evil looking. So you also get Vraska Betrayal Sting. When I read her name, for some reason, Pulp Fiction, that whole you feel that sting, that's pride. That made me think of that. So Vraska, we get obviously less information about. We get no casting cost. Her first ability is 0. You draw a card and then proliferate. I don't know. It's maybe it's you draw a card, then discard a card, proliferate. Obviously, we're missing a bunch of the text. You get -2. Target creature with tap, sack, mana. So this is not much at all, but here's what I think. I think this basically turns a creature in play into a gold token, right? So it's the equivalent of a treasure token. Maybe they're going to use treasure tokens now, but essentially the idea is that Vraska can turn creatures into stone because she's a Gorgon, right? She's like a Medusa. So boom, she can go, yo, I turn you into stone. We've seen that before with King Midas's touch, making gold tokens and whatever, and the whole trade-off, get a treasure token in exchange for destroyed creatures, is a very common thing that we see now in Magic. It being on a straight black creature like Vraska makes perfect sense to me, so that works. And then when we get to the ultimate, -9, if target player counters, then counters. So, I mean, my mind goes all over the place. It's like, if target player has counters on them, double the counters, and then double the counters again, maybe? Something like that? Or the if makes me go, why wouldn't it just be target player? It's got to be something to do with poison counters, right? Because we got Toxic in the set. We've got her having Proliferate as her 0 ability. And what's even crazier is, you know what? The 0 ability must say you draw a card, add a loyalty counter or 2 loyalty counters to Vraska and Proliferate. Because reading the rest of it, it's -2 and -9. So unless Vraska comes in with an insane amount of loyalty counters, how are you supposed to add loyalty to her? So that first ability must contribute loyalty. I can't think of any other outcome, right? The artwork for her, you can half see it. You got her leaning forward there, with her crazy Medusa hair. I mean, honestly, she doesn't look that changed overall from her Golgari form because she was already like a dark underworld menacing kind of figure. So, who else do we got? Jace the Perfected Mind. Now, I have to admit, straight out of the gate, looking at the artwork here, I'm like, why did you choose to put Jace at the back? He's the only character on the right-hand side in the artwork. It feels like he'd be the obvious choice to have on the right-hand side. Like, take Nissa, put Nissa where Jace is, and all of a sudden, you can see that Nissa's, like, artwork, you'd be able to see her way more over there. But Jace is half covered by the card in front of him. It's a weird choice, especially since Nissa isn't some insane planeswalker, so you're not looking at it going, that's super powerful, I know why, like, they put that one at the front, right? So, anyways, what's Jace the Perfected Mind? He is presumably one blue and one Phyrexian blue. That's what it looks like to me, although it could technically be 2 Phyrexian blue. Obviously, he's got completed. His first ability is +1 until your creature, I don't know, man, until your next turn, target creature you control becomes unblockable. I'm guessing that's what it is. He makes it into a Phyrexian whore, or until your next turn, target creature you control gets Toxic 1, although that feels way different than a blue ability. So I'm going to go with unblockable on that. -2, target player, a graveyard, something you draw. I have no idea what's going on with that one. Maybe it's target player mills X cards. If creatures were put into the graveyard this way, draw a card for each one, something like that. And then -X, and then it just says target, who knows? That one could be anything. I have no guesses. And in terms of the artwork, Jace is like wearing a cloak and half leaning off. So I don't have that much to say about it. Now, in terms of whether this is real or fake, well, I couldn't find the origin for this at all. I could not figure out for the life of me where this originally came from. Now, everybody already knows we're getting completed Planeswalkers. Everybody already knows who those Planeswalkers are. So in terms of known information, there you go. They already know about what completed Planeswalkers are. People already know the ones who are going to be involved. So they could have put these together. But when you look at the artwork, where would this artwork have come from, right? I'm looking at it going, okay, someone would have had to whip up artwork, and maybe with AI art, maybe they could go to Midjourney and come up with something like this, but that feels like a lot of work, right? You have this, the way that this is shot, it looks like a product shot. You have the hand holding it up, you got the little nail with the Phyrexian symbol on it, it's a nice touch. This to me screams Wizards of the Coast product shot, right down to the fact that they don't care that the cards are shown in somewhat poor quality. If you look down in the bottom left-hand corner of Vraska Betrayal Sting, what is that blob right down there? Is that part of the card design shown in foil that just looks bad? Or is that literally like a problem with it? Also, if you look around the edges of the cards, they look low quality. They look like the stuff that Wizards is producing now. Like, it's pretty telling that I looked at the image and legitimately went, I believe this is real because I can see all of these imperfections. And counterfeiters and fakers, while they mess up text and spacing and stuff like that, they tend to actually print the cards, or at least make the fakes, to better quality standards. So the fact that this is poorer quality says to me, this is most likely actually legitimate, which it's wild to me that they don't bother to actually have anybody look at the product shots and go, the product doesn't look that great, guys. Are we really going to leak this out as a hype shot? And they're like, whatever, we're not redoing it. That would take more clicking on a digital camera. Do you know how much this digital film costs? A lot. Wait, it doesn't cost anything? Well, we're not doing it anyways. That's good enough. Who cares? They're going to give us the money anyways. Wait until they find out what the March. Oh, you know what? Let's talk about that next time. Okay, I'll save that for the next video. All right, now let's turn to Secret Lair bonus cards, friends. We're going to start with the Post Malone bonus cards. The first Post Malone Home Alone bonus card is Fabled Passage, all right? Fabled Passage is a solid card. Sacrifice it, search your library for a basic land, put it onto the battlefield, tap, then shuffle. But if you have 4 or more lands out, you get to untap the land, which makes it so much better than cards like Evolving Wild. So this is the bonus in the Post Secret Lair with the lands in it. You can see he's done his little signature and scrawling down there. So that's fun for anybody who's a Post Malone fan. It just looks like the old school lands from when we started and just wrote card names on them. But the artwork is what's really interesting to me, because I strongly feel like this was actually meant for the Brothers War. I think this is repurposed Brothers War artwork. You look at basically the hellscape, it has the color and feel of the Brothers War. You've got this kind of portal leading to another place that's all kind of broken down and worn, leading to another location that's not war-torn. It might not be the Brothers War at all. Maybe that's just because the Brothers War is the most recent set we've had with this vibe, and I know that they were changing the story of the Brothers War around, so I'm not surprised if they had extra artwork. Anyways, let's talk about the other bonus postcard, and that is Post the Enchanter. I was genuinely surprised to see this. If you guys didn't know, Wizards of the Coast made a unique card for Post Malone. It's Zur the Enchanter, but it's Post the Enchanter instead. Now, they gave him an extended bordered full-on version that he didn't sleeve up or take care of properly at first, I guess. So when he got it graded and put it in a case, it got a grade of 8 because it had some play on it, right? So just like the Fear that I showed you. But anyways, I think it's really cool for Post Malone fans to be able to get Post Malone as Zur the Enchanter. I was not expecting the unique card to be put out this way. I imagine they said, yo, we made this card for you. We think it'd be really cool to make it the bonus card. And Post Malone was probably like, oh, that sounds awesome. Do it, right? Because he seems super chill. Now, I have one more bonus card to show you. This absolutely gorgeous Shadowborn Apostle. I love the secret lair concept of bringing in persistent petitioners and Shadowborn Apostles because they're a card anyone can use any number of. And giving them a whole bunch of different variety, I think, is a nice way to do things. It adds collectability. It lets people chase after them. This, to me, is like the biggest win concept for secret lair bonus cards out of everything I've seen. This is a great idea. I wouldn't want this to be the only concept for bonus cards. It's nice to have a mix, but this is a home run, and this artwork is amazing. This is from the Junji Ito one. Look at that. That is absolutely nuts. This Grim Reaper with the giant scythe and all the eyeballs and everything. I love it. Anyways, that wraps up this installment of Mega Magic News. Thanks for coming by, my friends. Big shout out to all my patrons, and I'll be live streaming on my other YouTube channel. Feel free to come on by today and hang out. See you there.